We have what is called authoritarian or autocratic leadership. Some people can call it dictatorship in general. This is where leaders use the philosophy of do what I say. In this type of leadership, communication is top down. They tell you what to do, you don't question. They are the ones who have the final say, and all the responsibility lies with the leader. And all the actions which are done, they depend on what the leader says. So this is the first one, authoritarian, autocratic, or dictatorship, which is the first one. Then we have democratic leadership. This leadership style, it uses participation. This is where we've got listening to both the bad and the good. And the bad and the good news, they're all accepted in a democratic leadership style. In this type of leadership style, it is different from authoritarian or autocratic leadership in that in an autocratic leader, you cannot deliver bad news to them. All they want to hear is good news all the time. There is no participation of other people in making decisions in authoritarian leadership, whereas in democratic leadership, there is participation. A junior person, a middle level management, and the top management, they're all involved. They all participate in making decisions. And the leader, they listen even to the subordinate. And the subordinate, they also listen to the leader. So communication moves both ways, upwards and downwards, as compared to authoritarian, which is a top-down direction of communication. Then we have a laissez-faire leadership. This type of leadership is like no leadership at all. The leader is there, but does not have control over the people, so does not have control over the decisions. Communication does not have any direction or flow. In this type of leadership, people do as they wish. This is one leadership that most of us, I know, would love to have. So laissez-faire leadership, people do as they wish. In terms of delivery, in terms of objectives being met, laissez-faire requires subordinates who are highly motivated. These are people who can deliver on their expectations even without supervision or monitoring. Motivation for the subordinates is very high, whereas in authoritarian leadership, the motivation is low. So those are the three that we have. We also have other leadership style, which is called transformational leadership. We also have what is called the servant leadership. Servant leadership for those who are religious. This is the one that Jesus did when he washed his disciples' feet. So there's another example of leadership styles that we have. We've got the pace-setter leadership. In this one, you build challenges and exciting goals for people. So you find that every time challenges, goals are met, and individuals who are really motivated, they achieve those goals. That's how they lead, always setting the pace. Visionary leadership, this is where you mobilize people towards a vision. So those are the other examples we have of leadership styles. So in this question, only 3 types were needed, and we've put much emphasis on the first 3, authoritarian, democratic, and laissez-faire leadership. Then part C, explain 5 barriers to communication. Now, barriers to communication, they can be language. Sometimes, as an example in the clinical setup, you might be a nurse, but the patient you are talking to does not understand English. They understand Bemba, they understand Chinyanja, they understand Lozi. The moment there is a change or a difference in language, language becomes a barrier to communication. Cultures and values. There can also be barriers to communication. There are expectations that comes with each culture. their expectations and the values which come with different cultures within our societies. So if you are communicating and you disregard other people's cultures or values, that can be a potential barrier to communication. Attitudes can be a barrier to communication. Unclear message. If the message is not clear, it can be a barrier to communication. It means the feedback you are going to get is not up to the same level as the message you would have sent. Perceived ideas about the sender can also be a barrier to communication. If the sender is not trusted by the receiver, there can be a barrier to communication, as the message which is supposed to be actioned upon cannot be actioned on. So perceived ideas about the sender can be a barrier to communication. Semantics or jargon can also be a barrier to communication. Sometimes it is important that we use simple and straightforward language. If it's English, make it plain. Avoid semantics and avoid big words. Avoid jargon, as they can be a barrier to communication. We also have physical barriers. This can be noise, this can be the medium used, and this can be the language. It's also another way in which we can also explain the barriers to communication. They can be physical, it's those three. They can be mental barriers. This is where we've got attitude about the center, the level of education, and the skill in sending the message. The level of understanding, perceptions, and poor listening. So that's another way you can classify the barriers to communication. Part D. Discuss the following functions of management. Planning. Planning, this involves defining objectives to be achieved for a given period and what needs to be done to achieve the objectives. Managers develop the objectives in line with overall strategies of the organization. So planning, this is defining objectives to be achieved for a given period of time and what needs to be done to achieve those objectives. So the managers, they develop the objectives in line with overall strategies of the organization. Basically, all the way in which those objectives are to be achieved, it has to fall in line with overall strategies of the organization. Then we have organizing. Now, organizing, it is the process of bringing together physical, financial, and human resources and developing productive relationships among them for achievement of organizational goals. The process of organizing involves identification of the activities, grouping of activities, assignment of duties, delegation of authority, and creation of responsibilities and coordinating authority and responsibility relationships. Then we have directing. Now, directing, it is part of the managerial function which actuates the organizational methods to work efficiently. So basically, it puts it into action. The organizational methods to work efficiently for the achievement of organizational purpose. It is considered the life spark that sets in motion the action of people, because planning, organizing, and staffing are the mere preparation for doing the work. It involves the following elements: supervision, motivation, leadership, and communication. So directing, this is where the manager is involved in the action. It is the life spark that sets in motion all the resources at hand, which can be people, which can be finances, which can be different resources in an organization, and it also involves planning, the organizing, the staffing. All those elements, they are put into action in the directing phase. Then we have controlling. It involves measurement of accomplishments against the standards and correction of deviation if there is any, to ensure achievement of organizational goals. The purpose of controlling is to make sure that everything occurs in conformities with the standards. Controlling involves establishment of standard performance, measurement of actual performance, comparison of actual performance with the standards, and finding out any deviation, if any, then corrective action. So in controlling, we're now looking at what we are producing. As you are directing, people are into action. So the results of the action, the results, we now compare them. Are they in conformity with what we wanted to achieve? If they are, yes, we have achieved the objectives. If they are not, then we look at how can we make the correction. So basically, we are looking at the results versus the standards that we have. Then we have staffing. Staffing, it is the function of manning the organization structure and keeping it manned. The main purpose of staffing is to put right men on the right job. Staffing involves manpower planning, training and development, remuneration, performance appraisal, and promotion and transfers. So that is what is involved in staffing. You need to make sure that in the organization, we have people manning different structures, different stations for their purposes. The right men for the right job. So staffing, again, it involves the planning of manpower, training them if they don't have the right skills or training, develop them to be the best, and also rewarding them. Remuneration, performance appraisal. You need to appraise them. You need to evaluate their performance and promote, if there is need, also to transfer them. So those are the 5 management functions that we have. And this concludes the July 2018 paper for the GNC qualifying examination. My name is Stanley Samsodza once again. I work with Dr. Enos Zvaneam Fushwa. Thank you.